Thank you very much, Antonio, and also thank you everyone for this great opportunity for sharing this panel with colleagues, rather with friends. Alma, we have known each other for quite a long time. It's a great panel. Y ahora voy a cambiar a inglés para presentar, porque sé que estamos hablándole a una audiencia internacional y para hablarles de algunos
work
elementos que...
on what we have as an initiative which is called Going Digital. And so the overview of the work of the OECD revolves around the notion that we are in the middle, we're barely beginning, not in the middle, but we're barely beginning to feel the profound transformation that is brought about by the digital revolution. And this profound transformation has a structural nature in it. So next slide, please. Thank you. So the OECD's efforts center around first understanding the digital transformation and its impacts on the economic and society, then to provide policymakers with the tools needed to develop a forward-looking whole-of-government policy response, and then to help overcome the gap between technology and policy development. Next, please. And so it all goes up to strategy, but then we have layers of action that we can conceive from a strategic standpoint, and that is digital government. We have on the one hand, the use of new technologies brought about by the digital transformation. Then we have the discussion about innovation, and as you said, Antonio, about productivity. And then we have, of course, we all know about the challenge in some countries, specific countries like emerging countries like Mexico, and that is about access. Not only access to connectivity, but also access to data. And that's a foremost concern in the years to come. And so we talk about framework policies, and then from a systemic holistic approach. Next, please. So 3 pillars in our project at the OECD. One is relates to horizontal activities. I mentioned understanding, responding, identifying transversal issues. Then we have a second pillar, which is about the work on specific committees of the OECD. And that's where we discuss the digital revolution from the standpoint of education policies, communication policies, labor policies, competition policies, and so those are the committees where the OECD carries out its day-to-day work. And then we have a third pillar which relates to cross-cutting modules. And then we discuss jobs and skills, we discuss productivity, and from the standpoint of competition and market openness, we discuss well-being, and we discuss, and that's part of the OECD's DNA measurement. Next, please. So measuring and responding, part of our mission to measure and to make recommendations. And we think that privacy in a data-driven economy requires interoperable strategies that strike a balance, enhance reuse and sharing of data versus privacy and intellectual property. Moreover, reducing digital divides, we talked extensively about that, but also we have to bear in mind that when we say digital divides, we mean bridging divides of gender, age, education, and also those that pertain to the size of firms in an economic or industrial sphere. And then we have governments have a good opportunity to be remade, and that's another call to action, that there's a unique opportunity for governments to reinvent themselves in order to strengthen the relationship between the citizenship and their government. And there's challenges that we need to address from a multilateral, multi-stakeholder standpoint. Next, please. Next, please. Next, yeah. Next, because we have, okay. What we at the OECD, we have mapped the extent to which there's the risk of automation and job displacement. And then what we see is that we are barely beginning with that process. And so far, the job displacement is not as acute as we thought originally. Next, please. And so, for example, Latin America, in that graph, it's at the middle point. And so what we see there is that Latin American countries, on average, are not yet as exposed to job automation as other countries in advanced economies. Next, please. There's nevertheless a problem and a concern at the OECD about job polarisation in major OECD economies. And so the risks of vulnerability of people in advanced economies, of people who might be left behind because of automation, the risk is larger in advanced economies than in emerging economies. Then next, please. So call to action is that there's so much yet to be done in terms of bridging the digital divide, but still we have in Latin America specifically the challenge of training people and adopting skill-based national job strategies. So to prepare people for new-collar jobs and to help people for transitioning into new jobs. Next, please. So digital transformation and the future of productivity. So it's all about diffusion of technology beyond large companies into small and medium enterprises. And you mentioned that very accurately, Antonio. Next, please. And so the other challenge is about the successful integration into global value chains. And so that's another challenge that emerging economies face. Latin America is not very well positioned there. And so there's got to be a structural effort at making the shift between low-value activities into higher-value activities globally. Next, please. So one of the things that drives the discussion about the Industry 4.0 and the next production revolution is the fact, and as Michael said, that in most OECD countries, there's still a lag. There's still companies, and especially SMEs, that have not adopted or have not access to the benefits of cloud computing. And so, for example, in Germany, Germany is a very advanced country, there was this concern and the admission that small and medium enterprises are not adopting technologies as fast as they were expected to. And so that became a concern of national height, and therefore Industry 4.0 was coined in Germany. Next, please. So this is important because we're talking about productivity and the sheer majority of firms being left behind and dragging productivity levels down even in advanced economies. Next, please. So again, call to action, bridge the digital divide, and then to identify areas where there might be leapfrogging opportunities. And that goes to trade facilitation, but it goes also to fostering small and medium-sized enterprises and digital entrepreneurship in general. Next, please. Next, please. We can go to it. And so, again, a holistic approach to measure how the impacts are being felt because of the digital transformation, and also to measure what is the results of different policies in the overall challenge of mitigating risks and maximizing opportunities for inclusive growth. Next, please. So 5 overarching messages before we close. Digital transformation holds immense opportunities. The governments and stakeholders must shape the transformation to ensure the benefits. Internet cuts across international borders and changes conventional notions of location, distance, and jurisdiction, requiring stronger international and multi-stakeholder cooperation. Privacy in a data-driven economy requires interoperable strategies that strike a balance between the benefits of enhanced reuse and sharing of data and concerns for privacy and intellectual property. Fourth, reducing digital divides along many dimensions is key, including access, geography, gender, age, and level of education. Those are essential to ensuring an inclusive and people-driven approach. And lastly, governments have an opportunity to be remade by digital transformation to improve efficiency, enable innovative policy design, and expand citizen and stakeholder engagement. Next, please. So if you mean to reach out to us at the OECD, my colleague Dirk Pilat, who's coordinating the Going Digital initiative, and myself will be pleased to provide you with more granular content. And you can go to the Going Digital external website as well. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias.